So Buddhism travels from South Asia to China and then on from China into Korea and from Korea to Japan by the 500s. And the story of Buddhism moving from South Asia into China can be tracked as it is recorded in art. So here is a 45-foot tall Buddha seated in meditation, carved from the living rock in northern China, one of hundreds made along the trade routes that connect Central Asia to China's Yellow River Valley. So carving from the living rock is a tradition that we saw in South Asia, and it was imported into China along with Buddhist philosophy, practice, and teachings. So notice the doorways carved into the rock. These are small caves or viharas, dwellings. Remember that term, viharas, from South Asia, where a monk or pilgrim can go inside to meditate in the presence of this towering figure of enlightenment. So Buddhism started in northern India, of course, and then it moved west and north into Central Asia. And from Central Asia, here's Afghanistan, here's Iran, from Central Asia into China along the Silk Road routes. Now, China, of course, has a long border here that's very close to India, to the eastern and northern part of India, but you have those massive Himalayan mountains. So going through Afghanistan is an easier way to be transmitting this tradition. So we have actually the memory of a colossal rock Buddha that once stood in today's Afghanistan, a record of the transmission of Buddha. And tragically now we can no longer view it because the Taliban destroyed it in 2001. But you see that it is still the same tradition of the rock-cut carving, the massive figure, and the little dwelling places. So as Buddhism assimilates into Chinese culture to become its third great philosophy alongside Taoism and Confucianism, we will start to see sculptures that mark this event. This small yet charismatic sculpture of Buddha is dated 338 and is the earliest known Buddhist artwork in China. We will see how an artwork like this one carries forward some features of the Gupta Buddha, such as the broad shoulder, the sense of calm in the ovoid face. But over time in China, Buddhist art will develop its own Chinese style that's more connected to Chinese artistic traditions. In order to fully understand Chinese Buddhist art, we have to go back for a moment, actually, to South Asia, to think about the splitting of Buddhism into multiple schools. So you, of course, learned about Siddhartha, known as Shakyamuni Buddha, which translates as the Lion Clan, as the founder of Buddhism, with his examples and teachings. Although he didn't think of himself as founding something called Buddhism, he showed the path of liberation, to liberation out of suffering. We discussed that Buddha literally means the awakened one, and we discussed the key point that a Buddha is not a god. Buddha is recorded as saying, "I am not a god, I am not a celestial being, I am awake." By the time Buddhism is thriving in China, we will see that the story is not just Shakyamuni, the sage of the Lion Clan. We will also be looking at artworks dedicated to a different vision of a Buddha. Here's one to Amitabha Buddha. Let me explain. As the centuries passed after the death of Siddhartha Gautama, the Shakyamuni Buddha, Buddhism branched off into different schools. The literature of Buddhism expanded and developed into three major traditions which have distinct approaches. So the form of Buddhism, known as Theravada, means the path or the way of the elders, and it focuses on maintaining the core teachings about the path that Siddhartha revealed. It is geographically focused on Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Burma, today known as Myanmar. That's where it thrives today. As Buddhism spread out, as we saw up the Silk Roads, into Central Asia, into China, and then Korea and Japan, a second school of Buddhism flourished called Mahayana. But it is known as the Great Vehicle, or the Big Ox Cart. I'll say that in a moment, but let me just add that Tibet has its own third school of Buddhism that is known as Vajrayana, literally the Diamond Way. Mahayana, I'm saying here, can be literally translated as great or big. The word maha, the suffix maha, is related to our word major. So this is a school that has a big, expansive set of ideas that radiate out from the core ideas of the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path. So we're seeing different schools, as I said, associated with different geographic regions. Here's a wonderful Buddhist sculpture from Sri Lanka. And these are believed to have emerged from various councils in which monks gathered after the death of the Buddha to discuss the rules of monastic life. So there were sort of different approaches to how to go about being a monastic. I want to quote one Buddhist scholar who talks about the idea that there are really more commonalities than differences between Theravada and Mahayana with regard to the fundamental teachings, in that both accept Shakyamuni Buddha as the teacher, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Paths. All of these fundamentals are the same. Keep that in mind, because I'm going to talk about some distinct elements in Mahayana, the Big Ox Cart, because I want you to understand how they relate to the art you are going to see. First, notable significant difference. We start to see discussion of Buddhas, plural. In fact, I should probably have made this a lowercase, right? Because the Buddha is usually capitalized. But in Mahayana, when we talk about Buddhas, we mean innumerable other possible Buddhas. The concept here is that in the endless expanse of time and space, there must have been and will be innumerable awakened beings, since the path is accessible to all. So a Buddha, lowercase b, is anyone at any point in time who becomes awakened, who achieves enlightenment, has an enlightened heart and mind. And so that's why we can speak of a Buddha. Also important is the idea in Mahayana of the Bodhisattva. Now, we saw the Bodhisattva Padmapani, also known as Avalokiteshvara, in the Ajanta caves, who is a Bodhisattva of infinite compassion. The idea of a Bodhisattva is that this is a being of infinite compassion who is on the threshold of awakening. So, in layperson's terms, 99.9% Buddha, but this Bodhisattva actually refrains from completing their enlightenment, vows not to enter nirvana until all beings are liberated. So the Bodhisattva path is a path in which a practitioner of Mahayana Buddhism is practicing their meditation, their awakening of the mind, their eightfold path, with the aim of ultimately helping to enlighten all beings everywhere. So bodhisattvas are figures of profound solace, compassion, salvation. In terms of art, we will see that their iconography is slightly different, and it enables you to recognize in an artwork whether you are seeing a bodhisattva or a Buddha or the Buddha. Bodhisattvas wear princely garments. They're often shown in this posture that's known as royal ease. Whereas we saw the Buddha in monks' robes in a lotus meditation posture. So remember your iconography of the Buddha, the monk's robe, the mudra of meditation, the Ushnisha, the awakened mind. Bodhisattvas often wear a crown. They have long earlobes like the Buddha, but the fact that the crown is there is a signifier, a symbol that they have not completely left this ordinary material world. They have not completely renounced. And the idea here is not that they, still like pretty things and wear gorgeous robes and fabulous crowns. The idea is they have not entered nirvana because they are here to help you and me, all of us, on this path. The other key development in Mahayana Buddhism is that we will speak about Buddhas, including what are known as transcendent Buddhas, such as Amitabha Buddha, shown here in a wall painting in the Dunhuang caves that you study. And Amitabha Buddha is known as the Buddha of the Western Pure Land. So we speak of Buddhas like Amitabha as transcendent Buddhas because there is no historical record of their existence and their life story. Instead, they are understood to exist within pure realms that exist beyond the ordinary world we inhabit. And so you will see that Amitabha Buddha is imagined here in a kind of paradise realm, and that paradise realm is very much envisioned, modeled on the kind of courtly splendor of a Chinese imperial court. So we will see as Buddhism develops in China, Buddhist artworks that are depicting Amitabha Buddha in the Pure Land, as this does, and also that are expressing Buddhist ideas through a Chinese aesthetic. So here we're going to see bronze as a favorite material for depicting a Buddha, since bronze already has an exalted status for millennia and has been linked for millennia to the power of spiritual beings as guides, right? So now that's being applied in a Buddhist context. We'll also see things that we didn't see in South Asia, such as these very intricate details that are, again, something that has been cultivated and really enjoyed and valued in China since the Shang and Zhou dynasty, this kind of intricate patterns, intricate ornamentation. And we'll also see a real interest in kind of dynamic flowing lines. And the difference is quite clear if we compare it to our beloved Gupta Buddha, right? Buddhist artworks modeled on the Gupta Buddha had helped transmit Buddhism. But look, by the Sui dynasty in 593, look how different this is. And so that, of course, is one of our great themes, right? How traditions carry on and are transformed, sometimes through interaction from forces outside, as in Buddhism coming to China, and sometimes internally. So here, for instance, we have a very interesting Northern Wei dynasty gilded bronze. So gilded means the bronze has been covered with a thin gold leaf. And we have it representing Shakyamuni, the historical Buddha, Siddhartha, with Prabhutaratna, hard to say, the Buddha of the past. So this idea that there's a meaning of a transcendent Buddha from alternate realms besides our own space and time with the Buddha of our space and time.